boy, not this whiny smug hack again. Oh man, we got to go on CNN. Why do we keep going on CNN? So that brings me to this. Let's play this clip real quick. Before we get into this, I want y'all to just hear and see this clip right here. Check it out.
President, since you attacked CNN, can I ask you a question?
John Roberts, go ahead, John. No. John Roberts, go ahead. CNN's fake news. I don't take questions. I don't take questions from CNN. CNN is fake news. I don't take questions from CNN. I'm not going to give you a question.
Can you stay categorically?
You are fake news.
Sir.
Look. You know you're a fake. You know that. Your whole network, the way you cover it, is fake. I think it was a fake report done by CNN.
I love this guy, man. I love our president, man.
But that wasn't my question.
I love my president, man.
The truth. So, as far as I'm concerned, I want to go to the next.
Can I ask you a question about?
No, not CNN, please. Go ahead.
The White House has not responded to these allegations.
I told you. CNN is fake news. Don't talk to me. Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah. What's the answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple you're a nasty person. It's like in a state of shock.
I'm not thinking, Mr.
That's
President.
okay. I know you're not thinking. You never do. It's a whole hoax. And you know who's playing into the hoax? People like you and the fake news media that we have in this country. And I say in many cases, the corrupt media, because you're corrupt. Much of the media in this country is not just fake, it's corrupt. Oh, that's a good one.
Mr. President, you won the White House in part because of high inflation. If your tariffs make prices go up...
Excuse me, we haven't asked you to speak yet, please. Right? Okay. Go ahead, please.
You won the White House in part...
Go ahead, please.
Mr. President, you are meeting Prime Minister Modi.
Yeah, buddy.
Want to really see something that said, take a look at what happened.
Why this beat so cold?
We will make America proud again. And you try to kill our We will make America wealthy again. And yes, together, we will make America great again.
All right, let's get into this. Oh boy, CNN ratings have tanked. You've lost the trust in the people. You ought to just shut it all down. All the propaganda, the fear mongering, the Trump derangement syndrome. Yeah, fake news, fake headlines. You ought to just shut it all down. But here we are with CNN.
Tonight, the Republican senator from Missouri, Eric Schmitt. And Senator, it's great to have you here. You just heard from your colleagues, but on the relationship between Trump and Zelensky overall, do you believe it's just essentially fractured at this point? Is there any repairing it?
Well, I think somebody's giving Zelensky really bad advice. If the idea is to go on European television and criticize President Trump, who's trying to bring peace to his country, I think that's terrible advice. And so, look, President Trump was pretty clear about this on the campaign trail. He wants to bring peace and end the Ukraine-Russian war, and he's trying to do that right now. And so I just don't think it's a good idea for Zelensky to be openly critical, saying he's listening to misinformation. I just don't think it's helpful.
But when Trump says a dictator without elections, I mean, is that a more accurate description of Putin or Zelensky?
Well, look, I think he was stating the obvious, which is Zelensky ought to have elections and stop lecturing the American president who's trying to bring peace to his country. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people have died. There is no end game here. There's no strategy for victory. So I think President Trump's doing exactly what he campaigned on, which is to bring peace. So I just think it's a flawed strategy by Zelensky. And President Trump, I think, is right to point out that they need to hold elections. I mean, Churchill learned that he lost at Potsdam. Abraham Lincoln ran, against a former general in the Civil War. So if you want to be a paragon of democracy, if you want to hold yourself out there as that, you got to sort of abide by that. And I think, by the way, part of the point of J.D. Vance's speech in Munich, too, was just to say, if you want to be a democracy, you got to live up to those principles and believe in free speech.
Game that out for me, though, because, one, as you know, Russia doesn't hold fair elections. You would agree to that, right?
Yeah, 100%.
That Putin has never been fairly or freely elected.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I'm not disputing that.
Trump is only saying this about one person.
Here we go. Zelensky was being openly critical.
Here we go.
Look,
here we go.
The United States of America, and President Trump specifically, is the only person in the world who can deliver peace and end the bloodshed.
But
So I just don't think it's
this,
smart.
I want to game out this election thing, though, because I went to Ukraine last year and interviewed Zelensky, and this was a topic of conversation. But in terms of, okay, so say he wants to hold elections as well, because he was democratically elected in the first place, and against someone who was trying to take up too much power. How do you hold an election in Ukraine right now?
Well, we do it. We had it in our Civil War. We had an election during
But we're
World
not
War
having
II.
missiles falling on American cities right now, and half of our young men aren't on the front line.
It's just hypocritical to claim that you are a true free democracy when you're unwilling to hold elections. I think that's the only point that President Trump was making. But again, this is all sort of, I think, noise. Ultimately, a lot of it's just going to be depending on how this thing gets settled. President Trump, I trust him. He's a master negotiator, and he's going to, I think, he said in the clip, right, that he loves the Ukrainian people, and I think that's what he's doing this for.
You just talked about all the deaths that have happened as a result of this, but who do you hold responsible for that?
Well, look, Russia invaded Ukraine, right? There's no question about that. But the reality is...
So when Trump says Ukraine started the war, what is your response to that?
This is a centuries-old dispute. I mean, if you want to go back and really... You've got the Crimean War. Russia wants a warm weather, a warm water port. A lot of these things, to try to... do I think that they're going to go back to the lines pre-2014? I don't know. I don't want to hamstring the negotiations, but I think people have to be realistic. The shift that you're seeing, I think, in the foreign policy of the United States of America is a shift to realism, right? Like the idea that the United States of America has core national interests, protecting the homeland, and China is our chief adversary. The American taxpayers are tapped out of this war in Ukraine. So again, President Trump campaigned on the idea of bringing peace. That's what he's trying to do. I do find it interesting.
Peace through strength. Peace through strength. I don't even know why we go on CNN. I just don't understand. Why do we go on CNN? I think everybody ought to just stop. I'm telling you, everybody. Trump, everybody, every Republican, every senator, everybody. We just stop answering. They ought to kick CNN out the briefing room, out the White House. They ought to ban them, just like they did the AP for not saying Gulf of America. Yeah, get CNN out. I'm just saying. Especially this smug, this hack he's sitting up here chatting with. I'm sick of this lady too.
Kaitlan, though, that the people who are screaming about this the loudest call President Trump a dictator all the time. Like, the American media is so willing to criticize President Trump.
Don't say American media here. I've never called Trump a dictator.
Well, I've heard it
That's
for 2 years.
That's an unfair criticism. But on
we'll tell you what's unfair, ma'am. We will tell you what's unfair and who's been treated very unfair. And 80% was from your network. We'll tell you what's been unfair. 90%.
I don't think so. On this very network, call them a threat to democracy 1,000 times.
And more than 1,000 times.
I've never called Trump a dictator,
Okay.
but on this very front here, in terms of what happens next, you just mentioned you're not sure if a return to pre-2014 borders, when Russia illegally annexed Crimea, could happen. When Trump says that, when Pete Hegseth says that flat out, are they giving up what they could be using to negotiate? Aren't they weakening Ukraine's position in these negotiations?
I think the United States, President Trump has a lot of leverage with Vladimir Putin, and I think he intends to use that. I'm not going to speak for the negotiators that are at the table, but the good news is the war hopefully is coming to an end. I would hope that as Americans we could cheer that. That's why President Trump is trying to do this. So I just don't understand. It's almost like people want this war to continue, and you have to ask the question why. President Trump.
The question is how it ends.
Okay, right. But
so you talked about lasting peace, right?
Sure.
You were saying that is what Trump wants to get to here. Trump has talked about ending this war. But is that defined by giving Putin what he wants here, letting him take all the land that he invaded?
No one's talking about that.
So what does that look like?
I don't know what it ultimately looks like. That's what the negotiation's for. But what I do know is that Joe Biden didn't want to have these discussions at all. And it was just about how much more money we could spend over there. And by the way, our industrial base, even if you wanted to send tens of billions of dollars more, it doesn't necessarily mean more munitions. We have a strained industrial base. Europe doesn't have a military industrial base to speak of, right? These are long-term challenges. But the truth is, I think the conversation needs to start going to the end of the war, as opposed to people promoting endless war. And Joe Biden didn't have the ability or the desire ever to try to bring peace.
I think it's a fair argument in terms of what the U.S. can send to Ukraine. Obviously, most of that, we talk about how much money has been sent. Most of that is in the form of military weaponry that has come a lot from U.S. military and weapon makers. But I want to ask you about what's happening in your place of work right now, because the top Republican in the Senate has set up for y'all to vote later this week on your budget plan. Trump came in today and endorsed the House's plan. Your plan would be two separate bills with his priorities. The House plan is one giant plan with his priorities. Are Senate Republicans still going to move forward with that, or what does that look like?
Yeah, look, President Trump made clear his preference. I mean, he had indicated this before and made it clear again today. He prefers the one big, beautiful bill. And everybody's rooting. If the House can go do that, that's great.
Can they do that?
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I hope they can. But I think from the Senate perspective, we want to provide another option, get some wins up on the board on border security, on military spending, on energy, and make sure we do the tax provisions also in a second tranche. But look, objectively, I think it's important for us to kind of move forward. But at the end of the day, everybody's on the same team. We want to deliver the victory that President Trump promised on the campaign trail, and the American people deserve.
The House plan calls for potentially cuts in Medicaid. They instruct them to find $880 billion, I believe is what it was. Would you support cuts to Medicaid if it's in the plan?
No one, I want to make clear, no one is talking about cuts to benefits in Medicare, Medicaid, or Social Security, period.
So there will be no cuts to Medicaid when
Not
this
benefits.
comes out?
There are no cuts to benefits at all. So I think one of the things that we're talking about is how do you find greater efficiencies in government? It's what DOGE is all about, right? But ultimately, we want to make sure those programs help the people that need it most.
Is Congress going to pass what DOGE is doing? Trump said that last night.
I would hope so. That's certainly something I would support. I think they have the ability within the executive branch to find savings. I think all these cases, as they work their way through, the courts are going to find that. But I do think we should make these cuts permanent.
Senator Eric Schmitt, thank you so much for your time.
Yep.
We need to stop going on CNN. Gotta stop going on CNN, man. And this woman just gets humiliated every single time. We got to set the record straight. I don't know how many times we have to keep setting the record straight. And this is why people turned off the television, CNN. This is why. And we need to just stop going on there. Let me know what y'all think of this, man.